Yo, I'm Bob. Into Star Wars. Happened to be totally blind since birth. Talking about The Bad Batch, Season 3, Episode 2. This one's Paths Unknown. It premiered today, actually. February 21st in 2024. So, Paths Unknown is the 34th episode of the series overall. There are spoilers ahead, so watch the episode if you don't want to get spoiled, or you can just, watch it anyway if you don't mind spoilers. Why you'd want to do that, I don't know, but you do you, I guess. That being said, jumping right into it, and you were warned. The opening scene of this episode really stuck with me. I love Deveronians in Star Wars. I loved Clancy Brown in The Mandalorian. I believe his name is Labria or Labria. I'm not really sure how you pronounce it in episode 4, but he is such a cool character in the Cantina. I also really liked him in the last one, Standing, the Tales of the Bounty Hunters, Tale of Boba Fett. So getting to see a bit more of Roland Duran and his crime family, such a touching family, in this opening scene really did a lot for me as a fan of the criminal underworld in the Star Wars galaxy. So it seems, from what I've been able to find the day of the premiere, that Roland's mom, Lady Durand, is voiced by Angelica Huston, and I know her best from The Addams Family 1991. Watched that when I was a kid. She played Morticia Addams in that film, so I love that she is voicing a very sinister Deveronian female crime boss here as the episode is opening. She is not happy with this former Deveronian captain. He's apparently betrayed her, and she's sitting on this big throne. And I love the atmosphere of this scene here. You've got this pit, you've got these shadowy figures who aren't really going to be saying anything to defend this guy, and he's screaming at him, calling them a bunch of cowards. He says her syndicate is weak, but she's got she's got control of the button, so she pushes it, and down into the pit he goes. I love that scene there. I love her voice. I love what she does as she's portraying this crime boss here. Also cool to see Roland again. We haven't seen him since I think it's Infested. It's a season 1 episode of The Bad Batch, way back in season 1. I think it's actually episode 13. I wouldn't swear by it, but I think it's episode 13. So yeah, Roland is here for the opening of this episode, and then we get to see what Wrecker and Hunter are up to, because they've brought in the Pike who cut Roland's horn off in season 1. They actually, I think, according to the audio description, they toss Roland his own severed horn. So he's got that back in his possession. Way to go, buddy. I don't know what you're going to do with it. I don't know if it can be reattached. They might have put it on ice. I don't know. But yeah, I like the scene there with one of the Pikes. The Pikes, to me, you kind of take them or leave them. I don't really know much about them to figure out whether or not I like them. I think they're okay. And I think Liam O'Brien of Critical Role fame, as well as, he's been in quite a few other things. He's voicing, I think, more than one character in the opening scene here. I do believe he's voicing the Deveronian captain that got the Mr. Burns treatment. You know how Mr. Burns would push that button and send people falling down a trapdoor in The Simpsons. And then he's also, I do believe, voicing the Pike here as Lady Durand decides to have him taken below. And in turn for that, Wrecker and Hunter, they get a bit of intel that they need, because of course they're looking for Omega, and they've heard that Durand syndicate has info that they need in order to find her. And she's just such a cool character, and I hope we're not done with the Durand crime family. I liked Roland in season 1, but for some reason seeing this family in their element, I guess we're on Deveron. I'm not sure, but I would say maybe in this episode. But seeing them here with all the shadowy figures in the background, the big throne, sending people into the pit. I want to see more of these guys. The Pikes are okay, but given the choice between the two, I think I'd pick the Deveronians. I love these guys. I like how she tells Hunter and Wrecker to skedaddle before her generosity runs out. She didn't say skedaddle. I said skedaddle. Just letting you know. Um, she's just a sinister character, and hopefully we'll be seeing more of this family at some point. But I mean, the majority of the episode, we head to an unknown planet right away. I mean, I'm sure everyone who'd watched the episode, we probably all thought the same thing. Yeah, they're not going to Tantus. They're going somewhere in order to find something to lead them to Tantus. But that's okay. I mean, they were pointed in the right direction, and I was not expecting to meet clone cadets, because when Wrecker and Hunter get to this unknown planet, hopefully the name will be revealed at some point. I tend to hope it's another expanded universe planet showing up in animation. When they get there, after just a few minutes, they're introduced to Stack and Deke. And these are clone cadets, young clones who have been abandoned. And I do believe that Daniel Logan is back and voicing these younger clones. He is, of course, young Boba in Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. He voiced young Boba in the Clone Wars. I would personally like to hear him voicing Boba at some point in the Bad Batch Season 3. And if he's back doing these clones, well, one can hope that he'll be voicing Boba. But I like the work that he did with all three of the clone cadets. Right away, we meet Stack and Deke. And we also get to see what Hemlock was up to on this abandoned planet. Because Hemlock, he might not be in this episode, but his actions certainly had consequences. And we get to see these slither vines come out of nowhere. When Wrecker, he touches one, I think then quite a few more come out of the woodwork. And this experiment was so horrific that apparently the Imperials did a base Delta Zero. And they vaped everything. Well, the vines survived. I'm sure they wiped out quite a few of their own people that were working in the abandoned lab on the planet. But yeah, so before Tantus, Royce had worked on other experiments. And when I think of Royce in regard to this episode, I also think of the expanded universe Galaxy of Fear series of novels. I only read one that I think that was on bookshare.org at one time. I don't know that for sure. I think it was. And there was text-to-speech regarding that book. It's never been on audio, but when it comes to Royce and his experiments, I think of that series of novels, because there was a scientist in that series that worked on quite a few unspeakable experiments for the Empire. It had a horror movie, horror novel vibe to that series. You mix Star Wars with horror, and you get the Galaxy of Fear series from the expanded universe timeline. So I couldn't help thinking of that series of books when seeing these vines in this episode, and they are everywhere. I like how Wrecker and Hunter, they have compassion for these clones, because they escaped before everything went down. And so they've just been on this abandoned planet, surviving, trying to wage a battle against the slither vines. They're trying to stay away from all of these creepy vines, and trying to make something of a life for themselves. And they're introduced to Mox. He seems to be their team leader. They take Hunter and Wrecker to Mox, and these guys have got to make it to the abandoned lab in order to find what they need, find more intel that will get them to Tantus. So they've got to endure a whole mess of slither vines. There are other monstrosities when they get to the lab. So you've got Deke. He takes Hunter and Wrecker there. And I like the Resident Evil vibe that this episode seems to be giving off. Not only do you have creepy vines, but you've got this giant lake of black ooze that seems to be in and around this abandoned lab. And the vines seem to be coming up out of here. You've got these weird cackling three-legged creatures that I think their legs possibly their entire bodies are covered with teeth, according to the audio description track. And yeah, Royce, you certainly screwed up this planet. And I mean, it's such a cool firefight at the end of the episode there. Thankfully, they managed to get what they need. Thanks to Gonki. Gonki plays an important role in this episode. Poor guy was kind of taken to the lab upside down. His little feet were kicking in the air, as I think Wrecker was wearing him as a kind of backpack. So I'm sure he didn't really care for that too much. But at least Gonki played a very important role in the episode, trying to get them the intel that they needed. The intel that they needed. They got the sector for Wayland. They didn't actually get to Wayland, but at least they were pointed in the right direction. So, I mean, even though they had to deal with a whole mess of vines and weird three-legged cackling creatures, as well as a giant mouth that came up out of the ooze toward the end of the episode, they managed to escape after that really cool boss fight ending there, where you've got all of them throwing thermal detonators into the vast cavernous mouth, and then the whole thing explodes so the vines can get off of the ship, the Marauder, so that they manage to escape with all three clone cadets. I like the crisis of conscience that two of them had, because they were going to steal the Marauder while Deke, Wrecker, and Hunter made their way to get the intel. You had the other two clones. They made their way to the ship. They thought about stealing it, but they ultimately did the right thing and saved everyone else's bacon as they approached there toward the end of the episode. One of the things I kept thinking of as the episode was playing on my screen for the first time was of Royce Hemlock's arrogance. I mean, here's a guy who thinks he can just create whatever obscenities he can, and he wants to use these as weapons, and he is naive enough to think that he is able to control them. But in this situation, of course, he ultimately can't. And what does he do? He decides to just vaporize everything. So Royce is, I think, becoming even more of a despicable character, at least in my eyes. But I love bad guys in that regard. I love to loathe bad guys like Royce. And I like that even though he isn't in the episode, you certainly see what he was up to before he moved on to Wayland and to Mount Tantus on Wayland. So I like the bit of Imperial backstory that we got in the episode regarding his horrific experiments. I don't know what in the world these things would have been used for. They were some sort of weapon. These vines were meant to be some kind of weapon, and ultimately the weapon turned on its masters, and oh boy. I hope that we're not done with these experiments. I'd like to see a few more, especially what could possibly be beneath Tantus. I'm not sure if they're going to go that route in the new Star Wars timeline, but I would certainly like to see more of what Tantus and its head scientist might have in store in terms of interesting experiments throughout this season. I think I give this one a 10 out of 10. I'm glad that they decided to air this one along with the next one. I wouldn't have wanted to stop after this episode. I like it pretty well mixed with the other two. I think most of what I like about it has to be the Deveronians at the beginning, as well as learning about what Hemlock was doing on this world. And I really like the clones. I think we're going to be seeing more of them. I don't think we're done with the clone cadets because, of course, they were told about an island. This is Pabu, and they're going to go there. So I think they're probably going to have a big part to play before season 3 is over. And who knows, we might see them in other animated projects. Who knows what Dave and company have in store after this series. Man, what a cool episode, and I cannot wait to get into Shadows of Tantus next time, so do come back for that episode review. But I really like this one. Such a cool fight scene toward the end. I hope we're not done with the crime family here. And next time we're going back to Tantus to see what Omega and Crosshair are up to. And who knows who else might show up. So, yeah. Till next time, guys. May the Force be with you.